Maxxine. This is the new installment in the X trilogy, directed by Ty West. And I've had conflicted feelings about this whole trilogy up until this point. I really did not care for X. I did not hate it, but I really didn't get people's love for it. It was just kind of this movie where there's that's set in the '70s and there's a porno and slasher thing. It didn't feel that special or unique to me. Um, so yeah, Pearl I really loved. I thought it had a great performance from Mia Goth that was very striking overall. Just incredible performance. Definitely deserved to be nominated for Best Actress that year. Unfortunately, was not, but she was great in the role, and she was just excellent. And the movie overall was pretty stellar with the performances and everything that went down within that movie. So I thought that was interesting. So I really didn't know what I was going to think going into Maxine. I saw a few clips. I didn't really watch the trailers. So when I sat down to this movie, I was sucked in from the first minute of this movie. I will say the best part about this movie and Pearl is the way they capture their time periods, which is something that X did pretty okay, but compared to these films, they do it a lot better. You know, Pearl capturing the old Hollywood time period that movie was set in. This movie capturing '80s Hollywood, and kind of some of that commentary in the movie. We'll get into that in just a second. But yeah, I really loved how this movie captured the '80s with the aesthetic, the music, the costume designs, the just tone and vibe of everything was just great with that. I would say this movie worked for me, but it still was a pretty flawed movie. I think my main takeaway from this movie is the slasher part of this movie, the kind of murder mystery thriller that this movie kind of is, was my least favorite part. I think that it wasn't super interesting. It was kind of predictable. I think Ty West is just not an interesting horror director. I think I'm just kind of learning that. Because when I'm watching these movies, the actual horror stuff about this trilogy is absolutely the worst part of the movie. It feels very generic and kind of cliche to me. Um, you know, like, and I think he does enough interesting things that it doesn't bother me, but I definitely am noticing that it's the weakest part of the movie. So I don't think the movie's really hurt by that stuff. It's just an observation that the worst part of the movie is the horror stuff. So if I had to criticize anything, that would be the thing. For me, what really worked about this movie is some of the commentary in the movie. I really liked how this movie basically talked about sex workers, and kind of their position of trying to get into the industry and what that's like, and kind of that position, you are if you're a woman who's a sex worker, and kind of what that means, and so I think a lot of that commentary was very poignant for the time that this movie was set in, very poignant now because I still think that's a lot of things, sex working is not as worked down upon in our modern society, but it's definitely still talked about with disgust and not really treated with any respect, even though it is an industry, it is a way of making money, and we just a thing. So I like that commentary in the movie. I think the second thing that this movie is really great at is capturing the '80s commentary of the satanic panic, with the way media is being discussed now. There's this killer on the loose, and somehow people are trying to draw that upon back into the industry and talk about media influencing people and things like that. So a lot of that commentary in the movie that was super interesting and very well done and very effective for me. So I thought this was a very interesting movie on what it was trying to say. I thought it was well directed. As much as I talked a little crap about Ty West, I think he does a good job directing these movies. Less so with X, because that's more of a straight slasher. With these movies aren't straight slashers, and they're more very unique, interesting things. So yeah, I like this movie. I really appreciated it. and definitely one of my new favorite movies of the year, honestly. I think it's my favorite A24 movie I've seen this year. I'll say that. Very good movie.